Good afternoon. So we have a big topic in front of us, unlocking the potential of data by cracking the data of AI by cracking the data code. So let me get cracking. Of course, AI. We are in the AI age. This is exploding all in front of us. But data is the key fuel, which is really driving the AI age. In fact, I would submit that data is as big a mega trend as AI. If you just put it into context, 90% of the world's data has got generated over the last 2 to 3 years. I'll say that again. 90% of the world's data has got generated over the last 2 to 3 years. Data has grown some 100,000 to 150,000 times over the last 25 years. So data is a mega explosion, which perhaps does not get enough center stage. It's kind of like the bridesmaid, not the bride. If you think about AI, there are three things that really go into AI. There's compute, there is algorithms, and there's data. And I would submit, and that's kind of really the focus of this particular conversation, that data is that critical both opportunity and also constraint. Yeah. So with this panel, that's what we are going to explore. We have three leaders, who represent very experienced, and they represent three different sectors. So Niro, banking, Nithya, consumer goods, and Vijay from healthcare. And so we'll bring different perspectives. So we will explore, to begin with, the opportunities with AI, kind of make it more real. We'll then get to the challenges with data, and then we'll then explore what are some of the solutions. So to get things going, Niro, I'll start with you. So as you think about AI and Gen AI in particular, your bank, NatWest, what are some of the use cases or opportunities that you guys are thinking of?
Cool. Thanks, Nitin. Hi, everyone. So just kind of agree with what Nitin said. If you want to be serious about AI, you need to be serious about data. I think that's the simple truth of it all. So NatWest is one of the big four banks in the UK. We consider ourselves a relationship bank in a digital world, which basically means that we need to look at capabilities that'll help us create more engaging experiences with our customers through our kind of digital channels. And Gen AI is definitely one of those capabilities that really help us on the engagement front as well as on the experience front. So we've been kind of experimenting with Gen AI for probably the last year and a bit, even before ChatGPT first came out. And initially, we had a lot of ideas of how we could implement Gen AI. We had probably, I think, 140 plus ideas or use cases around Gen AI, which is impressive. And that just kind of shows the level of engagement that you don't just have from the tech, but also from the kind of the business side as well. There is a lot of appetite around Gen AI. And I think as a bank, we're really excited by it. What we've started to do, I guess, over the last year and a bit is try to kind of focus on specific areas for us, especially where I work within the retail bank of NatWest, is what are the kind of areas that'll help really drive value for us. And I think from a use case perspective, we've probably kind of honed in on 5 specific areas. The first one is the obvious one, which is around content generation, but also content moderation. So content generation is the obvious one, which is, utilize Gen AI to help create content across all of our digital channels, be it the website, be it our mobile app, so on and so forth. But the key thing to remember there is, as you scale content, you still have to consider the moderation piece. So how do you ensure you've got the right guardrails behind the content that's generated by AI? So for us, it's things like our brand guidelines, our tone of voice, but also kind of more regulatory stuff. Like in the UK, we've got something called consumer duty, which is to ensure that we give customers good customer outcomes. It's the copy or the content that we're generating through Gen AI. Does it meet those kind of regulatory guidelines as well? So that's one of our use cases. The second use case that we're kind of focusing on is our kind of chatbot. So we have a chatbot called Cora, which we've had for a good number of years. It's a very good chatbot that really helps kind of provide support for our customers. But I think what Gen AI will do to that chatbot kind of world is really enhance the understanding of our chatbot and give more interactive results to our customers. So I think that is another area that we see a lot of promise in. The third area that we're looking at is around making our operations more intelligent. We've spent quite a few years looking at digitizing a lot of our manual operations and manual processes. But the challenge that we've had on that front has been around things like unstructured data. Unstructured data was very difficult for us to work with, and that's where we see a huge potential for Gen AI to come in and help us digitize a lot of that unstructured data. So it could be things like summarization, it could be things like transcription, sentiment analysis. There are a number of different capabilities that Gen AI provides us with that'll help us kind of be more intelligent with our operations. The fourth area that we're looking at is around augmenting knowledge. So we, as a bank, we've got 60,000 colleagues who work for us, and we need to ensure that they have the same level of knowledge about our products, about our services, especially when customers call us up or customers visit our branch. And we've got a number of different knowledge stores across the bank. So what we want to utilize Gen AI for is how do we make that knowledge more human friendly? How do we provide that knowledge at the fingertips for our colleagues whenever a customer interacts with us? So that not only improves the experience for our customers, but it also helps our colleagues be able to respond to our customers better. And I guess the last one of the last use cases is probably around the Copilot piece. So how do we enable Copilot across all of our teams so that our colleagues could use it in their kind of day-to-day work, and things like obviously in coding, how to use Copilot, but also more in terms of our colleagues using Excel. How do they kind of talk to the data in Excel using Copilot? So I guess those are kind of like the 5 big use cases that we're currently looking at.
Thanks, Niro. Very comprehensive, very practical, very real. Thanks for that. And what Niro described, the 5 use cases, and you can really see that there are more external or customer facing, and then there are a lot of them internal. And I think that's really what we're learning about Gen AI, that there are customer facing and there are internal. Just given time, maybe I'll jump to our next topic, which is, hey, this is all great, this is all starry-eyed, but what's the reality check? What are some of the challenges? And Nithya, I'm going to turn to you. I know that when we had spoken earlier, you were very eloquent in how you described the challenges. So would love to hear from you about that.
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's very pertinent because you're right that we are kind of getting to a stage of being obsessed about talking about generative AI, talking about all the deep tech, whereas we have to kind of look back and work on the fundamentals. As I was telling you, right, generative AI is like a Ferrari that we have designed, whereas without a good data and a good infrastructure, it'll be like driving a Ferrari in the gullies of Delhi or Agra or Bangalore for that matter, right? So it is so we have something which is highly capable, but we are not in a position to harness its full potential because we do not have sufficiently able infrastructure, sufficiently governed data, and sufficient skill set or talent in our organization. Now, talking about data, right? It's kind of no-brainer, that data is kind of the one part of the equation, and impact that we want to generate is the other part of equation. And all of these technology is the way that that we traverse from one point to the other point. So we keep talking about the technology and and the means of creating impact, but data is the foundation. Having said that, all of you would agree that that is the largest pain point and the biggest elephant in the room, right? There are other elephants, but this is something like of the size of a dinosaur, if I may. Because if you talk about it, right from the acquisition of data to kind of curation of the data, integration of data from multiple sources, to the governance of the data, maintaining the data quality, integrity and recency, and all of these, right? So all of these are big challenges on their own, right? So So there are two paradigms that I want to stick about in this context. One is not just garbage in is equal to garbage squared, not garbage out, it's garbage squared, but also complexity in is equal to complexity squared, which means that if we also do not work on the complexity of our data and systems or the tools ecosystem, right? Again, we are having a huge challenge, before, in front of us before we can harness Gen AI potential. Now, these are challenges and they're pretty well known, but how do we do it, right? How do we kind of manage these? Of course, there are some bespoke ways in, that we have always been talking about. Okay, let's have a very good data governance framework. Let's invest a lot in data quality. Let's invest a lot in simplifying our architecture and ecosystem and all of that. But another aspect, given the recent, buzz around privacy, especially in medical devices area, right? And data security and all. Rather, I think we should make our hardware, our edge devices very competent and our data models, small and manageable enough so that we deploy the data models onto the edge devices rather than, kind of transferring the data of the customers or the proprietary data to a central location where the models could run. So edge computing could be a very efficient, means of solving a lot of this data privacy and security constraints.
Thanks, Nithya. And you started to lay out the various data challenges, and it sometimes feels like a Pandora's box. You open it, and there are a lot of issues. You have talked about issues from data acquisition to data curation. How do you bring different type of data together? Data integration, quality. Perhaps one topic that you did not speak enough about was data security. Though you did mention data governance. And when you have all of these issues, one of the challenges is that where do you start? Yeah. So and I'll just maybe first open it up to our rest of our panelists as well, including you, Nithya, that in like these 5 or 6 set of data challenges, what do you see as the center of gravity? What do you see as the core bottleneck? That as you think about kind of moving forward, where would you typically start from? Anyone?
I think from a bank perspective, for us, customers trust us with their data. So security is paramount, and we need to ensure that any sort of Gen AI implementation that we do has the right kind of governance model behind it. So when ChatGPT first came out, obviously everyone was excited to start using ChatGPT within the bank. But we knew the obvious inherent risks with kind of putting personal information onto ChatGPT, and even worse, business information onto ChatGPT. So we actually told our teams to kind of not use ChatGPT within the bank. And we very quickly started putting policies and guardrails around the usage of ChatGPT and started kind of putting training in place so that people understood the risks with using such capabilities. But that didn't stop us from experimenting. We still experimented with kind of public data and ChatGPT. So we learned prompt engineering, we learned RAG architecture, we learned all of those things. But we were very kind of cautious and considerate in terms of our approach, in terms of adopting these capabilities. We've now kind of brought it within our kind of core closed clusters, and it's a lot more secure, and we're a lot more confident with the usage of these capabilities. But it's taking that time to really understand it, really learn the risks, making sure you've got your principles and your policies in place. All that for us has been super important.
Probably I'll add from the healthcare perspective, like security, right? Privacy is an important topic in the healthcare space. And I would like to, since we're also talking about the data code, I would like to differentiate between the data that is stored and archived and used, some kind of a data lake within the hospital with all the patient data involved, versus the data that is actually used to develop the algorithms. One set of data, one category is where the data is used to derive a lot of insights. The other set of data is where the data is used to develop the algorithms. Now, if you look at the first category, which is the data that is used for generating the insights, again, there are certain models where as Nithya was saying, right, there are certain models where they are run at the point of care within the device, and there is no problem with the PHI data, the privacy data. Whereas we see that some customers, they are very scared about sending the clinical data to the cloud where certain algorithms are executed. And so what we do is, within Philips, we have an approach where when the data is being sent, we give an option to the customer. Hey, do you want to remove the patient privacy data and then send this data to the cloud? And even to figure out what kind of privacy data, we use AI. So in order to run the AI on the actual data, we use an AI model to figure out the privacy data for that particular data. And we kind of remove that privacy information. To give an example, if you look at any MRI exam or an ultrasound or a CT, on the top right hand, you see the patient name there, patient name, age, etc. Right? Now, if we have to send this data to the cloud, we have an AI algorithm to figure out what is that patient data and just remove that patient data. The other information, like whether it is left or right, etc., will still be there. But we just remove that patient data and then we send it to the cloud where the algorithms are executed and the results are back. Now, if you look at the other category, which is collect the data to actually use it for AI development, right? That's the second category of data. That's a huge amount of data, because usually, as Nithya was also saying, right, and even Nitin, the data that we collect should be of top quality, because otherwise it's kind of garbage in and we don't know what is the result that we can expect from these algorithms, especially in the healthcare space, because it's a highly regulated space. Any kind of clinical algorithm that we develop, it has to be kind of FDA approved, it has to have that kind of repeatability at any point of time, etc. So we ensure that the quality of data that we collect from our partners also go through some kind of AI algorithms. So before we even collect the data for the AI development, we run certain algorithms. Many of them, in fact, we are experimenting with Gen AI, but we run those algorithms to figure out that the quality of the data is at time. Especially if it is to do with text, we are experimenting with the Gen AI. For example, if we have to collect, let me give you one classic example of what we are experimenting right now, especially in a cancer patient where there are a number of follow-ups. There are a number of clinical reports that are generated over a period of time. The next time the patient comes for the follow-up, the oncologist or the clinician has to really go through all the different reports that are generated previously. And we are trying to make use of Gen AI to see whether a summary can be created from all of these different reports. And we just can't make use of the Gen AI that is available, the LLMs that are available on the public. We have to fine tune. And for the fine tuning of data, we have to collect this data to fine tune the data. And for that, we again make use of a number of AI algorithms to collect the data, look at the quality of the data before sending it to the data lake. So, of course, the data is very much important, but using AI to get the quality data is super important for us.
Thanks, Vijay. And you brought up very important points about data privacy, data quality. But I loved your point at the end, which was about using AI to improve data quality. And it's interesting that AI and data have this recursive relationship with each other. That data is the foundation for AI, but with AI you can further improve data. So it's quite fascinating. You can create that resonance effect. I'm watching at the clock, and there is a big topic I want to get to, which is, see, Gen AI is very exciting, but end of the day, it's not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. Yeah, that with Gen AI you can get like 40 to 60, 70% kind of predictive ability. But to really put things into production, you need to get to 90%. Yeah. And that's where you need to contextualize the data. You need to, the LLMs, that Gen AI uses, they have to be integrated, with more domain-specific data or more enterprise data. And that's really what I see as a big challenge. What data you need and how you bring it together. So, we'll open it up to all the panelists here. Your experiences, and how you, mesh the LLM, with kind of more enterprise-specific data, and kind of then, take them into, production with much higher predictive power.
Sure. So, in a typical CPG organization, a lot of analytics happens around customer telemetry or the customer data, right? Because we want to understand the market, we want to understand the customer journey, their preferences, and accordingly personalize our products, personalize our promotions and offerings, and the SKU bundles, etc. Right? So therefore, because we are talking about market-specific information or customer behavior information, this is highly unstructured information, which generally comes through scraping a lot of web, and then relying on survey or feedback information, etc. Right? So this unstructured data has, which is highly contextual, but has thrown a huge challenge that how do we kind of synergize that with the enterprise data? How do we kind of integrate that with the rest of the data ecosystem, right? So when you're talking about big data, IoT data in general, even across the industry. So this is a big problem, but there's again, we are deploying AI to solve the problem of AI here, and then and this is how we have contextualized the data for ourselves, which is more representative of what the market feels about the Kellogg's products, and what is the customer journey, and where we can maximize our revenue, and what kind of promos we can roll out. And then we are deploying, as in we are training models, that can really help us answer these really, really important questions that have got almost direct impact on our top line.
Let me add one more example from the healthcare, especially since you asked for the contextualization. I'll probably give a practical example. We had developed a model to look at a mammogram and then see whether the mass or the calcification is benign or malignant. Now, one of the key steps as part of that is, even before you take the data and apply the algorithm, you need to figure out whether the data that you are getting in, where you will run the algorithm, is in the space of the training data that we had used for creating the algorithms. And for that, we use Gen AI. I mean, when I say Gen AI, not the ChatGPT kind of Gen AI, if you look at the two types of AI models, right? There is discriminative models and generative models, right? Discriminative models is where you kind of separate, classify, do regression, etc. Generative AI is where you understand the data space. As simple as a naive-Bayes algorithm. So you understand the space of the data, and we use that kind of a model, it's a generative AI model, to figure out whether the data that you are getting in the hospital is really the one that has to be sent as an input for the algorithm, right? If it is not, then you keep it aside and use a feedback loop given by the clinician to say that, hey, here is a new kind of data which was not in scope for this algorithm, and hence I will use that data further to fine-tune the algorithm. So I'm giving you an example where a Gen AI technique is used to see whether the data is in the right context for the algorithms.
Okay, I'm just looking at the clock. We are winding down. Let me do a surprise round. We haven't discussed this. Okay, so we'll do 2 buzzer rounds. So I just, just want you to give a one-word answer. Okay. So when you think about generative AI, what's the first word that comes to your mind?
Multimodal.
Monkey model.
Multimodal.
Multimodal. I thought monkey model. That could also be the case, but multimodal. Nithya.
Terminator.
Sorry?
Terminator.
Terminator. Wow. Terminator. Niro.
That's the earliest AGI that I have known in my childhood.
I think for me it would be accessibility.
Accessibility. Okay. Okay. Second buzzer round. So when you think about data in the context of the AI age, what's the first word that comes to your mind?
Quality.
Quality.
Contextual.
Contextual.
Data age.
Data age. Okay. So, I want to conclude on that note. So just to summarize, we are in the AI age, but the AI age would not happen without data. Yeah. So to convert the hype and the promise and the potential of AI and Gen AI into impact, it gets down to data. That's the very clear message that we would like you to take away. Now, when you think about data, there are multiple set of challenges that need to be overcome. The first is about getting the right data and contextualizing the data. Now, this concept of contextualizing the data is one of the key themes, we really want you to take away. Contextualize the data, yeah? And as you're contextualizing the data, you need to integrate the data. You need to integrate from multiple sources. And as you are in the Gen AI world, that becomes even more complicated. And when you're integrating, data quality has always been a challenge. And in this generative AI world, where you are contextualizing, you're integrating, data quality becomes even a bigger issue. Yeah. And finally, it's about data security. Yeah. So data security is probably the biggest threat to the AI age, and that's something you have to be very proactive about. So that's what we wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for such an insightful session.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASSCOM YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.